My girlfriend moved in with her best friend. Should I be worried? It all started with a text message. My 23 girlfriend told me, 24, she'd found an apartment, and she'd signed the lease with her best friend, Derek, 26. Just like that, she'd made the decision. She was moving in with him. My stomach dropped. We'd been together 3 years, and sure, the idea of moving in had come up, but I'd never fully committed. Now she was doing it with Derek instead. I didn't know how to react. On one hand, I knew she and Derek were practically family, but the thought of them living together hit me harder than I expected. She explained it, saying I hadn't seemed ready to move in and that Derek needed a roommate too. It made sense, she said. I tried to ignore the knot in my chest and told myself I was overreacting. But it didn't sit right. A few days later, we talked about the move, and she was so excited. She was going on about the huge windows, the neighborhood, and how Derek had even found them a great deal. I wanted to be supportive, but then she mentioned something else. She and Derek would be sharing a bed for the first week until his bed arrived. I tried to keep my voice steady, but I had to ask, "You're sharing a bed? With Derek?" She shrugged it off, saying it was just for a few nights, and laughed, saying, "You know, we're just friends." But that image stayed with me, and I couldn't shake it. We ended up arguing that night. She told me I was overreacting, that I needed to trust her. She was frustrated that I couldn't see it from her perspective. Eventually, I let it go, trying to believe that it really was just a practical solution. She was my girlfriend, after all. I wanted to trust her, to show her I was secure. But the idea still nagged at me. The next day, I brought up the idea of staying with them for those first few nights until Derek's bed arrived. Maybe I'd feel better if I could just be there. She frowned and shook her head, saying she needed to take this step on her own, that this was about independence. It felt like she was pushing me out of her life, just when she was starting a new one. I knew I should understand, but it made my suspicions worse. After a few days of struggling with this, I snapped. "If you'd rather be living with him than me, then maybe we need to rethink this relationship," I said, feeling a wave of anger and doubt wash over me. She looked hurt and told me I wasn't being fair. We went back and forth, each of us feeling misunderstood, until we finally settled on a compromise. She promised to keep me updated, to check in every day and let me know everything was fine. I felt a little better, but I could still feel the tension between us. When moving day came, I tried to be supportive. I told her to let me know if she needed anything, and she texted that first night saying the move had gone well and everything was good. She even sent me pictures of their new place, showing me the living room, all decorated and cozy. I was relieved. It felt like maybe I'd been worrying for nothing. But the next day, her messages started to get shorter. When I'd ask what she and Derek were doing, she'd take hours to reply. She'd say things like, "busy unpacking," or "exhausted from moving," brushing off my questions. By the third day, the updates had almost stopped. When I tried to ask more, she got defensive, snapping at me, "Why do you need to know everything I'm doing?" Her tone caught me off guard, and I realized I'd gone from being her boyfriend to someone she had to answer to. I was lying awake that night, thinking about it, feeling like everything had shifted between us without me even realizing. That night, I asked if we could video call. She seemed a little annoyed, but eventually agreed. When she answered, my heart sank. She was sitting on her bed in an oversized t-shirt, her hair messy, and I could tell right away she wasn't wearing a bra. She shifted, and I caught a glimpse of her bare legs, and from what I could see, she was wearing a thong. It didn't feel right, knowing Derek could walk in at any moment. Trying to hide my irritation, I asked her about it, but she brushed me off. "Derek isn't here yet," she said, almost like she was annoyed that I'd even asked. I tried to keep calm, but the image of her, dressed like that, in the apartment with him, was burned into my mind. The tension kept building, and I didn't know if I could keep pretending everything was okay. I was trying to trust her, but every time I thought about them together, sharing meals, talking late into the night, maybe even laughing over inside jokes, it felt like I was being pushed out, left with nothing but suspicion and doubt. It was like I was watching her life move forward with Derek while I was stuck, wondering if I was just holding on to something that was already slipping away.